Federalism. What is it? How does it work? And how does it play into politics today? Federalism is when states within a federal system share the power with the national government. In federalism, the distribution of power is shared between a central authority, like the U.S. government, and its constituents, the United States of America. Federalism calls for different kinds of powers and authorities. Enumerated powers are practiced at a federal level and include making international treaties, providing national military, and regulating domestic trade. Reserved powers are those powers reserved for the individual states within a federal system. A state-level government with these reserved powers can establish a government, regulate and manage public education, and license marriages. Powers and authorities that are shared between both the federal and state systems are called concurrent powers. Taxation, the building of infrastructure, establishing courts, and law enforcement are all concurrent powers. This balance and sharing of powers is under consistent debate. The Supremacy Clause, embodied in the U.S. Constitution, states that final or ultimate authority falls to the federal government. The push and pull between federal and state authorities continues. To bring these definitions into context, let's explore a contemporary debate between these federal and state powers. Today, we're going to take a look at marijuana. So how is marijuana legal in Colorado, but illegal on a federal level? This long-held debate between the federal government and state government has accumulated in what is known today as the Cole Memorandum, a memo that put into context the federal government's role in the enforcement of marijuana laws and outlines what infractions could result in federal intervention. Quote, outside of these enforcement priorities, the federal government has traditionally relied on states and local law enforcement agencies to address marijuana activity through enforcement of their own narcotics laws. Ultimately, the Cole Memorandum put into effect a transition of marijuana litigation and enforcement from an enumerated power, that is, one solely directed by the national government, to a concurrent power, relying first on the state's ability to direct, regulate, and enforce marijuana protocols, and then, only if those protocols are breached, to the feds. Colorado, as one of the many states that have adopted the Cole Memorandum as a framework for marijuana policies, has taken on the responsibility of determining its own marijuana enforcement and litigation under the directives outlined by the Cole Memorandum, Congress, and the Controlled Substances Act, as well as the Department of Justice. It is important to realize that states' policies towards marijuana may not align with federal policies. After all, the possession, distribution, and transportation and use of marijuana is still a federal offense, even if it's legal at a state level. In 2017, the framework adopted in the Cole Memorandum was redacted, stripping away the safety net for states' marijuana policies. This redaction, however, hasn't necessarily turned the tide for the state's marijuana litigation or policies. The federal system, Congress, the Department of Justice, and enforcement agencies now have to consider the popular opinion, allocation of funding, and congressional reputation when debating, regulating, or enforcing federal marijuana laws. This push and pull between the national and state governments regarding marijuana policy is an excellent example of federalism at work.